The honeymoon stage of the Fran Brown era is officially over. Syracuse suffered its first loss of the 2024 season, falling to the Stanford Cardinals on a game-winning field goal last Friday night. A game that only saw 25 rushing yards from running back LaQuint Allen and 2 picks from QB1 Kyle McCord. But there's good news for the Cuse. They welcome in Holy Cross to a sold-out JMA Wireless Dome. They will look to make it 14 straight wins against the Crusaders before 4 straight road trips in October. We'll break down everything you need to know about SU and Holy Cross because it's live Cuse Countdown, and it starts right now. And welcome to a live edition of Cuse Countdown right outside on the quad here on the campus of Syracuse University. Chloe Smarz, Avin, Tyler Aitken. We're breaking it down, getting you set an hour and a half from kickoff of Syracuse and Holy Cross. Guys, what a day to be here, number one. Weather is fabulous. It's been raining here all week. I'm so excited. What are you guys feeling?
We're outside. We're right next to the dome. Our team's playing in there in just a little bit, and I'm sitting next to our FCS football expert over here in Tyler Aitken. So
apparently that's what I am, an FCS opponent. Still the first sellout of the Fran Brown era. Already a lot of fans right here on the quad.
Well, Syracuse coming off a 26-24 loss against Stanford last Friday, but they have a big opportunity here against an FCS school in Holy Cross. They're going to try to make it 14 straight wins. Tyler, what does this mean? Actually, I'll go to Adam first. What does this mean for a game for Syracuse to get momentum back?
Well, I think if you would have looked at their schedule to start the season off, you would have thought Georgia Tech was that trap game almost that they could fall, but it was actually Stanford, and so that's not a loss that you want to see. But even though it was surprising, this is going to be an opportunity for them to come back, build some momentum, specifically on offense, limit those turnovers, because the defense has actually been really good, got in stops, a couple interceptions last game in that Stanford loss. Today, the defense hopefully shows out, and the offense continues to improve.
Yeah, Syracuse doesn't need to prove anything in my mind with the final score. If the Orange go out there and are trying to make this a blowout game, that's not what will be successful for Syracuse. If Syracuse focuses on building a rushing identity, if Syracuse comes out of this game healthy, if the offensive line looks improved, all of that is what's important for Syracuse today. The final score is secondary, but it should come as a big win as well.
Right.
Well, guys, today's game, a sold-out crowd at the JMA Wireless Dome. It's also family weekend here at Syracuse, and our very own Srikar Rajendran joins us from inside the JMA Wireless Dome. Srikar, so great for you to join us. So great to see you. I know we're still a little bit out from the game, but what's the vibe right now inside the dome?
Guys, as you can see behind me, the lower bowl and the upper sections, fans are just starting to get in their seats. Not too many yet, but that is soon to change for this Parents Weekend game against Holy Cross. Now, following that crushing loss against Stanford, there is kind of a sense of excitement in this building for SU to get back on track and get a win in this one. And against an FCS team like the Holy Cross Crusaders, the opportunity certainly presents itself. I'll update you guys moments before kickoff, but as of right now, fans just starting to trickle in.
Thank you, Srikar. And guys, let's take a step back, right? Syracuse 2-1 in the season, have won against Ohio and ranked Georgia Tech, but losing to Stanford. Tyler, this is a team that had so much hype in the preseason, bringing in Fran Brown, all these transfers, Kyle McCord. Is this exactly where you thought Syracuse would be through 3 games? Are you underwhelmed, overwhelmed? What do you think?
Well, I'm not surprised at the end result, 2-1 through 3 games. I'm surprised by how Syracuse got there. If you asked me before the season, I would have said, hey, 2-1 with probably a loss to Georgia Tech, a ranked Georgia Tech team, that's totally fine. Now, they did lose to Stanford instead of Georgia Tech, and so I don't really know quite what to think of that. I think after that Stanford loss, you saw that Syracuse's floor is lower than maybe expected. Syracuse can lose to worse teams, but the upper level talent, the ceiling of this team is still there for the most part.
And you mentioned it, Tyler. You wouldn't have expected that Stanford loss, a team that was picked to finish last in the ACC preseason poll. That is not the loss you want to start your season off with, especially with such a great ranked win against number 23 Georgia Tech. The offense, though, needs to get back to a place where Kyle McCord is comfortable, where they're limiting those turnovers. That's my big takeaway from that game, because you saw he still finished with 300 passing yards. We're going to get into McCord in the offense in a little bit, but I think that's a real key point for me today. Is you want to see them against Holy Cross, a team that you should dominate. You want to see the passing game work.
Well, guys, the last time that Holy Cross and Syracuse met was 2019, and Tommy DeVito led Syracuse to a win. But as Max Gifford breaks down, the rivalry between Holy Cross and Syracuse dates back to the 1950s.
Well, hey, thanks, Chloe. For Syracuse and Holy Cross, historic may not necessarily be the word that comes to mind immediately. But since the Orange played their first game in 1889, the Crusaders are actually SU's 13th eldest opponent ever, dating all the way back to 1904. Just for reference, that's when Theodore Roosevelt was the president. But when it comes to results in these clash, from the naked eye, it's pretty one-sided. Take a look at this. 24 for Syracuse and only 5 for Holy Cross. But all 5 of those Crusader victories came in the span of 38 years, from 1920 to 1958. After that is where the domination really begins, right here in 1959. And many Orange fans know that year was the most prolific one in the team's history, where the squad captured its first and only national championship. Now, since the separation of major college football programs, that's FBS and FCS, into 2 divisions in 1978, SU was only matched up against Holy Cross one other time, and that was, coincidentally, the only other one played in the JMA Wireless Dome, 5 years to the date of today's contest, where the Dino Babers led Orange off of their best season since 1992, scored 17 unanswered points in the first quarter en route to a 41-3 victory. As to what today means in the 124-year history, a Syracuse win means its lucky number 13th straight victory over Holy Cross, while a Crusaders dub would break a 65-year winless drought against the Orange. Chloe, back to you.
Guys, I'm surprised that they even found footage from the 1950s of Syracuse. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, that was the heyday of Syracuse football, too. I mean, I know
some people say I was there to watch that game. I'd like to think so, but no, I wish I got to watch games at Archibald. The Dome looks a lot better than it did back then.
Definitely does.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I don't know if Holy Cross and Syracuse is the most exciting game nowadays that it might have been back then.
No, certainly not.
Great breakdown by Max.
Well, guys, when we come back here on Cuse Countdown, we're going to talk the game that everyone here in Syracuse just can't stop talking about. Syracuse and Stanford, what went wrong, what went right after the break. Welcome back to Live CC here on Syracuse's campus. Chloe Smarz, Adam Avin, Tyler Aitken getting you set for Syracuse Holy Cross for about a little over an hour till kickoff. Guys, we can't look forward without looking back to a week ago. Syracuse losing to Stanford 26-24. Head coach Fran Brown taking accountability after the loss.
As long as those guys come to practice today and we're ready for Holy Cross, then we'll be able to move on and just lock in on Holy Cross, because we can't change what happened with Stanford. Coach Fran lost the game. I just kind of said that, and we keep trying to bring that same thing back up. So that's completely myself, and we'll fix everything else up.
Great accountability from Fran Brown, obviously, on that 4th and 9 play. Adam, What do you think went wrong for Syracuse when you looked at this game?
Well, I think for the most part, it was the discrepancy between the offenses, specifically when we talk about the running game. And we could talk about this all day. I'm sure we will in a little bit as well. But Stanford, 176 rushing yards to Syracuse's 26. I mean, when you're going up against an ACC opponent that, according to what people said, preseason should not have the same type of expectations that your defense might have had, you need to be able to run the ball against that team. And not to mention the fact that there was penalties in certain areas where where plays needed to be executed, because that was when you're down the stretch, you got to go and make those right plays. And unfortunately, the running game wasn't working, and they were getting themselves into trouble.
Adam, this is a great reminder that there are no easy wins in the ACC this year. And everybody was talking before the season, no, it's such an easy schedule. Yeah. Stanford clearly wasn't an easy win. That means games like Pitt, games like Boston College, games like Cal. None of those are automatic wins, and Syracuse is going to have to grind for every single conference victory.
Yeah.
Well, guys, everyone in the 315 talking about this game still, and our very own Hudson Ridley joins us from somewhere on this SU campus. Hudson, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us today.
I am here on a packed bus.
Number two, what's the vibe around campus right now?
For Parents Weekend on the Holy Cross game, and I happen to find Matt here, who has a lot of thoughts on that Stanford game that you guys talked about. Matt, that game this week was a little bit of a heartbreaker. What were your feelings as SU?
It was a very close game, and they took the lead in the final minute, but they couldn't, unfortunately, close it out. It was a validating effort, but just a heartbreaking loss in the end, I think, for all of us.
Exactly. Now, that was a conference game, so a little bit tougher, but now this week, a Holy Cross team that might not be as good. What do you think this team can do a little bit better from last week to this week to get to the point where they need to be to take down?
Well, I think they just need to come into this game having more confidence. I think there's going to be a lot of motivation, especially after losing the last game. They're going to want to quickly rebound it. They're going to want to quickly rebound from that. And this is a sold-out dome. They need to feed off of this sold-out crowd. This is a special opportunity. I think it's going to be a fun afternoon.
Are you going to be in that sold-out crowd?
Well, yes, I am.
There we go. All right, guys, that was Matt. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Hudson. We'll be with you later in the show. Guys, I'm going to go to you first here, Tyler. So when you look at the whole game, so many little moments happened. What was in your mind the play that turned this whole game around?
Well, it was the biggest play of the game. It was a 71-yard interception return for a touchdown thrown by Kyle McCord. And this, let's do some math, was a 14-point swing. Syracuse was down 13-10 late in the third quarter, driving in Stanford territory. Could have scored a touchdown to go up 17-13. Instead, a pick six is thrown. Syracuse goes down 20-10, and 10 points was too big of a deficit to come back from. If Syracuse doesn't throw that pick six, if Kyle McCord makes a good read on that play, then there's no 4th and 9 later in the game. Syracuse would have won already. And so the pick six ended Syracuse's chances before it even, had that chance in the fourth quarter.
Adam, what do you think?
Well, Chloe, I'm going to say the play that Io Manor made in the first quarter, Tyler. I'm saying this game was way over before it even started. Ashton Daniels threw a wobbly ball overthrown into the end zone, and Alec Io Manor, an NFL talent-level wide receiver, goes up and makes a spectacular one-handed grab to put Stanford on the board. Now, we know it's been a theme early in this season for Syracuse so far. They get started off slow during games, specifically on defense, and end up playing better later as the game goes on. But that touchdown right there, the play that he made it very clear to me and early on and evident that this game was not going to be as easy for Syracuse as maybe all the fans watching thought.
It was a catch of the year, Ken. 100%.
A catch of the year. And my turning point of the game, the player you mentioned, Io Manor, on the 4th and 9 play that changed this whole game around. If he doesn't make that catch, then Syracuse might win the game. And my one concern there on that play is that I think everyone, Stanford side and Syracuse side, knew where the ball was going to. And you have Clarence Lewis in a one-on-one coverage. That's a recipe for disaster. Right. I like that Coach Brown after the game took accountability for it. Said that he put in his players in a position to fail. But that was that one big play.
Like we said, after he goes and makes that play in the first quarter on 4th and 9 with the game on the line, you know where the ball's going.
You know exactly where the ball's going. And speaking of quarterbacks, let's talk QB1. Kyle McCord struggled for the first time in an orange uniform. You can't put all the blame on him. Offensive line play was a little bit questionable, but had 2 touchdowns, one of them a rushing touchdown. and threw for over 330 yards, but 2 picks and a fumble on the day. Tyler, are you any bit concerned about Kyle McCord's performance against Stanford?
I'm actually not. And I know that sounds crazy because I just said his pick 6 was the reason that Syracuse lost. But you have to look at how he responded to that. And he said after the game that he watched the full game 3 times overnight. He didn't sleep after the loss. Then he was in Coach Fran Brown's office every day this week to talk about what happened and how he can do better. And let's think about the standard for Syracuse quarterbacks for a second. Kyle McCord threw for 339 yards in this game to Stanford. That's more than any career game at Ohio State. And so if this is a bad game, then there's not too much to worry about. 2 interceptions for just the 3rd time in his career. He'll clean that up. The passing yards, that's impressive from Kyle McCord. I'm not too worried at all.
You can't worry about it too much. Look, it's a minor setback. This is the quarterback that you wanted when you go into the transfer portal and you get a guy from Ohio State and Kyle McCord. If you were to tell Syracuse fans last year, after Garrett Schrader, after all the injuries, after all the quarterback switches, that they would get a quarterback that consistently throws for over 300 yards and multiple passing touchdowns in a game, you'd say, sign me up right now. And so I got to think for Kyle McCord today, look, he's probably not going to play the whole game. We know today against Holy Cross, we're going to see some other players touch the field. But if McCord looks comfortable and still just throws the ball, throws a couple touchdowns, I'm going to be confident that going forward, he's going to be able to be serviceable in this offense like we've seen him do, even against Stanford with those 2 interceptions.
McCord coming with a lot of experience from Ohio State, and he said post-game that this game reminded him so much of the loss against Michigan. Take a listen to what he had to say.
You know, that was probably the biggest college football game last year, in my opinion, and, you know, to lose that teaches you a lot about yourself, teaches you a lot about resiliency, and you know, everything I went through in the offseason and ended up here. So I think that we have to use this as motivation.
It didn't help that Kyle McCord had no help from his backfield. Only 26 yards rushing, 25 of them coming from LeQuint Allen. Adam, we all know this. Any level of football that you're playing, you cannot be a one-dimensional offense. Is there concern in the running game for Syracuse?
I wouldn't say there's much concern going forward. I think they realize they need to run the ball, Chloe, but what I will say is it was abysmal, the performance that we saw in that game against Stanford. 26 rushing yards is not something that you want to see, and I know we're going to be talking about LeQuint Allen, and you know, he's the guy, the power back in this offense, and not to mention he is spectacular in the receiving game too. But Syracuse missed Jeff Nixon last week, the backup running back, son of offensive coordinator Will Nixon, son of offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. He's their change of pace guy. His acceleration, his quickness, right off the line when he gets the ball in his hands. That's a player that Syracuse needed because LeQuint Allen hasn't seen a full workload this year. Yassine Willis has barely touched the field. That is a guy who knows his offense, who knows the holes. He can run between tackles, and Syracuse missed him in that game, and I think the running game was all out of whack because of that, and once LeQuint Allen couldn't establish the run, they were missing it all game long.
No, the run game comes down to one man, and it's not a running back. It's the head coach, Fran Brown. He needs to step up with the running game. Syracuse had fewer rushing attempts this season than any other ACC team. It was 42 passes and 17 rushes against Stanford. Just 8 rushes by LeQuint Allen. He wasn't given a chance to establish the run. Syracuse, by the way, hasn't run for 17 times or fewer since 2007, back when Syracuse was a mediocre Big East team. Now, they are supposed to be a good ACC team that can run the ball. LeQuint Allen needs to be given a chance. 8 rushing attempts is not a chance. The run game issues was all on the play calling. Fran Brown, Jeff Nixon, I don't know who to blame, but it's the coaching.
Well, Tyler talked about him, Fran Brown. It's been a new feel and a new era of coaching here at SU. New slogans, new system. But as Nick Whaley breaks down, it's not always the easiest transition taking over a new program.
Thanks, Chloe. It's fair to say that Syracuse head coach Fran Brown has created an energy around Syracuse football that we haven't seen in a long time. A big way the 42-year-old rookie head coach has done that is with his words in the media. But has that translated to performance on the field? Let's start with the offense against Stanford last week. Here's what Coach Brown had to say about the lack of run game against the Cardinal.
And it gives them a better opportunity, but we got to be able to run the football, and they eliminated that. They only allowed us to pass the ball.
Coach is absolutely right. Against the Cardinals, Syracuse rushed for just 26 net yards. The longest run of the entire game was Kyle McCord's rushing touchdown for 19. LeQuint Allen only had 8 carries on the day after having 15 against both Ohio and Georgia Tech. That can't all be put on Allen's shoulders, however. He still needs guys to block the runs ahead of him. Prior to the Stanford game, Fran Brown was nothing but excited, though, about his O-line.
You know, we grew a little bit of depth when it comes to the O-line now. Just the fact that Enrique Cruz is a grown man, you know, doing everything he can, and you watch him push and be able to tell, you know, Savion Washington.
Look, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but let's be honest here. The offensive line has been an issue for Syracuse football for years. McCord was sacked 4 times against the Card, and on multiple occasions forced to throw the ball away and forced to roll out of the pocket with no chance for the plays to develop. However, unlike what Jordan Leonard said on OPP last week, there are positives to take, particularly on the defensive line. Fran Brown was happy with the other side of the ball, even without a few key starters.
I'm thankful where they are. I think they work really hard. I think Nick Williams does a great job.
To put in perspective, Syracuse lost its captain Marlo Wax week 1. Justin Barron had to move over from safety to linebacker, and Marcellus Barnes Jr. was hurt in the first quarter. But the defense is what kept Cuse in the game late. It was the offense that let them down. Defense might not be a main talking point today against Holy Cross, but it will be crucial against UNLV and those ACC road games down the line. We'll soon find out if what Fran Brown says can keep translating to the gridiron. Guys, back to you.
It's definitely a different feel here on campus, at least I know, with Fran Brown as head coach. What do you think about how he's leading this program overall?
Look, the play calling is one thing. For me, it's a little bit more about the time management. He's never been a head coach before, and he's going to get a hang of it as the season goes along, but you don't want to sit up in a press conference and say, this is how I'm running the team, this is what we're going to do on the field, and then the team doesn't execute in that way. So, Tyler, I think this going forward from Fran Brown, you want to hear him be a little bit more concrete on the field with what he says in his pressers.
You'd appreciate that. The one thing with him is that he doesn't want to give away his game plan. He's done that pretty much every week. After the game against Ohio, everyone was worried about the run defense, and he said, we're not going to change the run defense. And then Fadil Diggs comes out as a linebacker to help prevent the run the next week. So this is a serious program at this point with Fran Brown. He knows that he has to, play some trickery against other coaches. He did that against Georgia Tech, right? He kind of played into the, you don't think we're physical enough? He'll do whatever it takes to get the win. So I appreciate that in press conferences. I will say I would appreciate some better in-game management, but it's growing pains. He's never been a head coach before. That's what you sign up for when you bring in someone with that little experience. Yep.
Well, our very own Hudson Ridley has found Otto, which is the greatest news that I've heard all day. Hudson, I'm sending it over to you. How's Otto doing? We're having technical difficulties currently, so we're going to go back to the SU defense. Tyler, you talked about him before. Had some bright flashes against Stanford, but overall struggled to get after Stanford's quarterback. Pass rush was not there all game. To put it simply, what do you think went wrong defensively for the Orange?
Well, I don't want to put it completely on one person every single time, but again, I'm going to go to the coaching.
Come on.
Syracuse's defense was largely pretty good in this game. The coverage was good all game long. 2 interceptions in this game. But the big flub in this game was on that 4th and 9 play when Clarence Lewis was put on an absolute island. He was given no help, and it's not like Syracuse didn't have a chance to make an adjustment because Syracuse called a timeout to switch the defensive coverage on that play, and still it was single coverage. Before that play, 2 interceptions, decent coverage in the field. The pass rush could have been better. I was overall content with the defense. I was not content with the defense on that last play.
You took all the words out of my mouth, so much so that I'm losing my voice right now. I don't know why. Multiple interceptions. The defense looked good throughout. A lot of players also weren't playing. Marcellus Barnes got hurt in the first quarter. Tank Wilson didn't play in that game as well. Fran Brown was a DB coach when he was at Georgia. He has faith in his guys. And unfortunately, in a situation like that, on 4th and 9, he's going to bring the pressure and he's going to leave his guys out on an island.
He didn't bring the pressure. It was a 3-man rush. But there was a delayed second level.
Sure. But then why are you leaving your guy on an island, and why aren't you not doubling this guy who's going to get drafted, who's the best player on the other team? Chloe's turning point was that play right there on 4th and 9, because once he makes that catch, the game is over. And so from Fran Brown going forward, with the defensive schemes, yes, you have faith in your DBs. Yes, you want them to play well. But on the other hand, you also got to make sure that you're guarding the best players and doubling and things like that.
Well, guys, when we come back here on Cuse Countdown, we're going to meet the visitors of Holy Cross, an FCS school that hasn't been too bad in the past 5 years. Stay with us.
check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. No.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz...
Welcome back to Live Cuse Countdown here on the quad at SU. Chloe Smarz, Avin, Tyler Aitken getting you set for Syracuse Holy Cross. Guys, we're about an hour to kick off, and it's definitely picking up around here.
Yeah, a lot of people walking around. The band keeps getting louder and louder.
And louder as the show goes
Every time
on.
we come back out of a break, they're playing, you know, it's awesome, but it's really loud. And it's so hot. The sun's over there. I'm sweating. We're still having a good time, though. People are celebrating. I love it.
I will say, if you had to pick one game, had to bet on one game for it to be a sellout, this year Holy Cross would be the last home game I would have expected. We'll be talking betting with Jordan Leonard on Beat the Bookie later in the show, but I wouldn't have predicted this game to be a sellout. It's a huge credit to the Syracuse fans, the parents. It's family weekend. It seems as though the families are out here and ready to cheer for the
Yeah, they're waving behind
People are
us.
walking by.
But let's talk to visitors of Holy Cross. Tyler, you mentioned them. This has been a program that from 2019 to 2022 made the FCS football playoffs 4 years straight. This past season, though, a little bit of a different story. They coming off a 38-31 loss to Yale, kind of a similar situation to Syracuse. Adam, don't knock this program, though. They've had success as of late, no?
Yeah, they have. This is a team where in the last 5 years, under Bob Chesney, their former head coach, they had a lot of success. You know, obviously they're not playing the level of competition that Syracuse plays, and when we're talking about this game specifically, we need to mention that. But it still doesn't change the fact that they've had a couple really good seasons with their last head coach. We've yet to see it right now. They did lose players. We're going to get into that. This isn't the same Holy Cross team, but if you go back and look at what they've done, you got to be pretty happy with the state of the program and where it was at with Bob Chesney.
I think you can be happy with where the state of the program was, but anymore, not really the case, because Bob Chesney had one 5-6 season and then was in the playoffs pretty much the rest of his coaching career at Holy Cross. It did not take him long to adjust. 4 out of 6 of Holy Cross's 6 FCS playoff appearances ever were under Bob Chesney. All of their college success is under him. And so I don't think Dan Curran, the new head coach, can have too long of a leash. 1-3 already, that's a bad start. If he has a second bad year, you start to think, is Holy Cross the premier brand of the Patriot League anymore? It's unfair to him. It's not a fair situation. But when you have all that momentum that Bob Chesney brought to this program, you can't throw it away in just 1 or 2 years.
It's like Alabama. Kalen DeBoer needs to win now, or else Crimson Tide fans are going to get upset. Maybe it's the same with Holy Cross.
It's not fair, but is Holy Cross the Alabama of the Patriot League?
Or
that's a little bit of a stretch. That's
all right.
Well, as these two mentioned, the majority of the success for Holy Cross coming under head coach Bob Chesney, who joined the program back in 2018. Now at JMU, the tides have turned to head coach Dan Curran. And now as Andrew Delapana breaks down the change in leadership for Holy Cross and how it's changed this program.
Hey, thanks so much, Chloe. On November 19th, 2023, Syracuse football let go of Dino Babers after 8 seasons in the Salt City. Just 9 days later, though, Fran Brown was chosen as the 31st head coach in program history. Athletic Director John Wildhack highlighted Brown's extensive recruiting experience in South Jersey, one of Syracuse's prime recruiting grounds, as a major factor for this hire. That wasn't almost the case, though, so let's jump into the world of what if. Well, we're in the past, everybody. Welcome back. Right now in Syracuse's hiring process, there are many potential suitors for this job. Names being thrown around like Dan Mullen, Kurt Cignetti, or even the potential return of Doug Marrone. Can you believe that? The one that stands out the most, though, is in Worcester, Massachusetts, with Holy Cross head coach Bob Chesney, a coach that has won more than 70% of his games at the D3, D2, and FCS level. Chesney, though, is in the midst of guiding the Crusaders to unprecedented success, a program record 5 straight Patriot League championships. He's also been named the conference's Coach of the Year 3 times over that stretch from 2019 to 2021. And in 2021, he was a finalist for the Eddie Robinson Award, presented to the nation's top head coach at the FCS level. And Chesney checks off most of the crucial boxes listed by Wildhack in this search, recruiting ties to the Northeast. He's also spent his entire coaching career recruiting kids from the East Coast. However, he does not check the box for experience with a Power 5 program. Wildhack stated he would prefer to have someone with past Power 5 experience as a coordinator or head coach.
Chesney does not have that. With that, let us return to present day. It feels good to be back here in the present, don't you think? Well, after that Fran Brown hiring, Chesney was ultimately hired by James Madison on December 7th. JMU is currently 3-0 after a thrashing over North Carolina last weekend. Dan Curran stepped in as the new head coach for Holy Cross after spending 11 seasons at Merrimack, guiding the Warriors through their transition from D2 to D1. He's also the all-time winningest coach in program history with 53 victories. When asked about holding Holy Cross to a high standard, he responded, "I think expectations are a good thing." Now he just wants to follow in Chesney's footsteps. And with that, Chloe, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Guys, under Curran, it's been a different feel, good or bad. What are your initial thoughts on what you've seen from his program?
Yeah, well, you look at what he did. I'm going to pull up Andrew's graphics over here. But Curran was the all-time winningest coach in Merrimack history. Spent 11 years there. Takes over for Bob Chesney, who goes to JMU. So he does have a legacy himself. He has some history, Curran does, but he needs to create some here at Holy Cross.
Yeah, I mean, he was the all-time winningest coach at Merrimack, but his overall win percentage there was under 60%. So it's not like he's the perfect head coach coming in from Merrimack. It's going to be an adjustment regardless of what happens.
Well, let's talk QB1 for Holy Cross. Joe Pasansky has been with this program his entire career, but now getting the chance in his senior season to make an impact. Adam, what do you like about his game so far?
Well, Pasansky is really a pure pocket passer. Last year with Matt Sluka, quarterback who left UNLV now, he would run quite a bit in that Holy Cross offense. Pasansky doesn't very much. Averages just under 20 rushing yards per game. And so Pasansky over 220 passing yards in the pocket. This is going to be a team, a Syracuse defense that he hasn't faced before. Fran Brown knows how to bring the pressure. Obviously, they've dealt with some injuries, but it's going to be something like he hasn't faced before. I don't think the passing total is going to be as high. Maybe we're going to see him for the first time have to try and use his legs, Tyler, but it's not something that we've seen in his game thus far.
I mean, he's going to be in trouble regardless. He is the epitome of a game manager quarterback. He doesn't have a single game with multiple passing touchdowns. He doesn't have a single game with more than 20 completions. He's just kind of there to set up the run game, and that's no disrespect to him, but he is out there to manage the game, dink and dunk, and just do the bare minimum. And it's unfortunate, but that's what his role has been chiseled out with this Crusaders team, and trying to dink and dunk, trying to just not make mistakes against a Syracuse defense that has 2 takeaways last week against a Power 4 program. It could get ugly. 1 interception on the year for him so far. He might have multiple in the first half.
Right, the Syracuse defense still needs to bring the pressure, though, even with the backups that might be on the field today.
True.
If there's one thing that Holy Cross has produced, it's been talent for other schools. So many players coming out of Worcester, Mass. and going somewhere else. In the news this week, quarterback Matt Sluka at UNLV. That's a whole other conversation. But they're producing some talent, Tyler, that's been showing up at other schools.
Exactly, and it's a curse with these small FCS schools where you have all that talent, and then if they prove themselves, it gets ripped away. And it's not fair, because if you're a coach at a school like this, what are you supposed to do? If you coach them to be good players, they're going to get taken away. If they're bad players, nobody's going to want them, including you. But you look at these three players, Matt Sluka, maybe you wouldn't want this guy. There's a lot of drama going in Las Vegas. He's not going to play the rest of the year there. But Jacob Dobbs, Terrence Spence, really solid defensive pieces, but with Bob Chesney moving to James Madison, obviously they're going to follow. Spence with 2 interceptions already, Dobbs with a sack, and that's up at the FBS level. Clearly, they were talented enough to play at the FBS the whole time, and it's a credit to Holy Cross that they got him there in the first place, but still, it really sucks to lose him.
Yeah, it's not uncommon practice for players to go follow a head coach, especially now in the NIL era. So Jacob Dobbs, Terrence Spence, they go and they follow Bob Chesney to James Madison, which put up a 20-burger against UNC last week. Defense looked pretty good, too. And so the Holy Cross knows how to produce talent. Unfortunately, they go off to a bigger and better picture after the FCS.
Speaking of Holy Cross, our very own Hudson Ridley joins us from inside the quad with a Holy Cross fan. Hudson Ridley, thank you so much for joining back. What do they got to say about this matchup?
3, 2, 1.
Hey, thank you, Chloe. I'm here with Dana, a Holy Cross fan, one of the few that we've met here. Now, Dana, Holy Cross has not beat Syracuse since 1959. The score prediction today?
45-13 Syracuse.
What constitutes a Holy Cross win today?
A score better than that.
Okay, there we go. That's the line that we have right now from Dana. Now, Dana, You've been a Holy Cross fan for a little while now. As
40 years.
40 years. What's your favorite win you've seen from Holy Cross in that span?
Against UNH 2 years ago in the playoffs.
Wow, there we go. Holy Cross fan, one of the few we've had. Guys, back to you.
Hudson, that was great. I love that. But guys, you can't talk about this Holy Cross offense without talking about its weapons. Running back Jordan Fuller and wide receiver Max Mosey at the center of it, as our very own AJ Myers and Sam Reese breaks down the duo for this Crusaders own.
Hey, thanks so much, Chloe. And while Syracuse might be the big favorite heading into today's matchup against Holy Cross, there are a couple of threats in the passing game from the Crusaders that we want to highlight, AJ.
Yeah, and it starts with the tight end, Jacob Peterson. He's had a really strong year. He already has over 200 receiving yards. You're going to see him here in a second. He's got 4 receptions, and in this game, he got his first touchdown, and it was on this play. He does a good job at creating space. Yes, it's not the best defense, but still, he does a nice job creating space, gets into the end zone. If you remember against Stanford, Alec Iomanner, their best wideout target, it was plays like this. He got open off of poor Syracuse defending, something Syracuse will want to avoid against Holy Cross today. Jacob Peterson, he has that ability to score touchdowns, but he's also a chunk play guy. Here, a little screen pass, gets to the outside and out of bounds. He's a unique tight end. He's not strictly just a tight end. You saw it. He has the deep ball threat, but also it's plays like this where he can pick up chunk yardage. Sam, it's something Syracuse is going to want to avoid. They don't want Jacob Peterson to have 8 or 9 receptions with 20 yards because that adds up.
It does. It definitely adds up. They got to keep an eye on the tight end in Peterson, but someone I want to focus on is a wide receiver, number 13, Max Mosey. I call him Eminem, and he broke onto the scene really last weekend in their game against Yale. You see right here, this was the biggest pass play of the game for the Crusaders, a 42-yard pass down the sideline, and it was tight single coverage here. Mosey has to really extend all the way out to make this catch. He hauls it in bounds, an impressive catch to say the least, and then he also has the ability to fight through contact. He's a very fierce receiver who doesn't go down easy. You see this, definitely a shorter pass over the middle. He makes the catch. You can say it's poor tackling. I say it's a nice spin move right here, and he still gets that extra yardage at the very end. So not just a first down, he's always looking for more. So Max Mosey, another guy that Syracuse has to keep an eye on because he had 5 catches for nearly 130 yards 1 week ago, AJ.
Chloe, if Holy Cross wants any chance of beating Syracuse today, these two players will need to have big games.
And another big talent on that team, tight end Jacob Peterson, guys. They have some weapons on this team that they can use against Syracuse.
There certainly are some weapons, and when you look at these totals, you see a lot of yard numbers in the 200s, and that does sound pretty good. But remember, Holy Cross has played 4 games in comparison to Syracuse's 3. So every stat on there, you got to keep it in context. Hey, Arondé Gadsden has only had 3 games to put up a similar amount of yards. LaQuint Allen has only had 3 games to put up a similar amount of yards. These are 3 players that have a lot of talent, but against the Syracuse defense, it's going to be a lot uglier.
Well, guys, when we come back here on Cuse Countdown, the 3 of us are going to tell you the players to watch in this matchup. Kickoff is less than an hour away. Stay with us.
Women are bad with money.
It's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now,
we've got something to say.
Save it. Save the old-fashioned advice, the empty excuses. It's all worthless, unlike us.
To our fellow females, it is time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Contributing to our futures, investing in our independence.
Until we're no longer 80%
more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So again, we say to that, save it.
The falsehoods, the feelings of fault, then the funds.
Learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Live Cuse Countdown, guys. Chloe Smarz, Adam Avin, Tyler Aitken getting you set for Syracuse and Holy Cross. Fans starting to roll in here. It's getting quite packed, guys.
I mean, the dome's right next to us. Unfortunately, we're right in the middle of the path, so people are all walking around on both sides.
Really hot out
Really
here.
hot outside.
Well, guys, let's break this down. Who are some players that you guys like to have a breakout game or have a really decent game against Holy Cross? Adam, I'll go to you first.
Right, so like we mentioned, a lot of the starters might be absent in this game or at least only play a quarter of it. And so I'm looking at an edge rusher, King Joseph Edwards, who has been a social media sensation for the Orange since he's come to Syracuse. It really immersed himself in the community. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of Georgia, got close with Fran Brown, and was one of Brown's first big commits this offseason when he became head coach. He hasn't seen the field much with some returners and some impact transfers on the D-line, but in a game like Holy Cross, he'll be able to see the field. He's quick off the line. He's athletic. By the way, guys, he played basketball and ran track in high school, so he is an athlete. And we know Fran Brown is not afraid to play freshmen, especially on defense. We know we've seen freshman DBs back there that he's coached, and so we're going to see a guy like King Joseph Edwards, maybe some other guys, edge rushers, who don't get a lot of playing time to see the field today. King Joseph Edwards being one of them. I know you like his posts on social media, too.
His posts on social media are great. He's certainly immersed himself in the community, a lot of public service work, charity work, which has been nice to see. He's a confident guy. You'd hope he can back that up on the field.
There you go.
Tyler, who do you like in this matchup?
Well, in this matchup, I'm a big fan of Yasin Willis. He is a 6'1", 225-pound running back. He has so much size. He is going to be absolutely dangerous for an undersized Holy Cross defense. And I talked earlier about how the running identity of this team is pretty much gone. LaQuint Allen was only trusted with the ball 8 times last week, and so who knows? Maybe it's an issue of Fran Brown doesn't trust LaQuint Allen. Let's find another guy you can trust. Who knows how long Will Nixon would be out? How about Yasin Willis? He's going to be a goal line back at times this year. If he can prove that today against an undersized defense, maybe he can prove it going forward against some better ACC defenses. Remember, he had 90 yards and a touchdown against Syracuse's starters in the spring game. Syracuse's starters, much better than Holy Cross's second stringers, and that's who he's going to be going up against in the fourth quarter.
And I don't want to stand next to him because he's ripped, I'm really skinny, so I look really small.
Tyler, you talk running back. I'm going to talk wide receiver here. I know Syracuse probably will run the ball a lot this game, but why not Jackson Meeks? It kind of seems like that Kyle McCord has a new favorite target every single game he plays. Against Ohio, it was Arondé Gadsden. Against Georgia Tech, it was Pena, and last week Amari Hatcher got in the mix. Why not Jackson Meeks? He got his first career touchdown last week against Stanford, 3 catches, 40 yards. It's a player that Fran Brown brought in to make offensive impact. He's done it on special teams. I would love to see him get in the mix more and build that relationship with Kyle McCord in a game against Holy Cross where they can do that, because Holy Cross pass defense isn't the strongest against this Syracuse offense. But guys, when we come back here on CC, we take a look around the ACC and around the NCAA. We'll talk big matchups all around the country. Stay with us.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
And welcome back here to Live Cuse Countdown. Chloe Smarz, Adam Avin, Tyler Aitken, getting you set 45 minutes till kickoff between Syracuse and Holy Cross. Guys, there are so many people around us. I'm actually surprised. This is insane. I love it. And this is a great day on the campus of Syracuse.
It's a great day. It's a hot day, but still very nice weather, and it should be an exciting game. It's Parents Weekend, so a lot of families getting together, and I've seen a lot of Holy Cross merch, so shout out to those guys coming over and making the trip, too. You love to see it.
You do say it's hot like every time that Chloe asks about the weather. Are you doing
okay?
Are you sweating?
During the break.
Look, you don't want to see under my jacket.
Okay.
Well, guys, let's take a look around the ACC. A big matchup coming later today between Notre Dame and Louisville down in South Bend. We also have Stanford and Clemson. Not a bad slate of games today, Adam. What do you like in the ACC?
Well, I want to talk about the game that happened last night. Miami, Virginia Tech. First of all, Miami are frauds. I think everybody knew that. No, I'm just joking. Obviously, they're a very good football team, but that was the first competition that they faced. The Hokies came in prepared. They were prepped, and they were ready to take down a Hurricanes team that haven't faced much competition. Cam Ward looked frustrated at times. He hasn't felt that pressure yet, but he made some spectacular plays late, and ultimately the refs decided it wasn't a catch at the end after a great play by Virginia Tech, and Miami goes away with the victory, goes to 5-0.
Few games on my mind. One of them, Thomas Castellanos, the starting quarterback for a Boston College team that's had a strong start to the year. He's out. We'll see how good the Eagles are today against a Western Kentucky team. That'll be a pretty interesting matchup. But the real one, Stanford against Clemson. It's a good opportunity to find out how bad or how good is that Stanford team that Syracuse lost to last week. I'd feel a lot less worried if Stanford goes out and beats Clemson on top of their win over Syracuse last week.
Well, guys, the biggest game of the year so far happening tonight. Georgia, Bama, college game day in attendance. Top 25 matchups all across the country right now. Big 10, we have Illinois and Penn State. Big 12, Kansas State, OSU. Tyler, what game sticks out to you in terms of the landscape of college football?
Well, you said it. It's Alabama against Georgia, a top 4 matchup that very rarely happens this early in the season. They're in 2 different SEC divisions, so sometimes they can only meet in the SEC championship game. On top of that, usually when they do play, it's late October or it's early November. This might be one of the best September games, not just this year, but in the last decade of college football. Wow. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to that one on top of the Syracuse game today.
The SEC game between Georgia and Bama is obviously the one you want to watch, but we also have some other good Big Ten matchups. Penn State, Illinois is going to be one you want to keep an eye on. Illinois has been playing really good as of late, and Penn State, I mean, who knows? Every year we see a little bit of a collapse against some opponents that might shock you, or maybe they don't play as well. We'll see how the Nittany Lions play. Keep an eye out for the Illinois.
I'm rooting against Illinois, by the way. They stole Syracuse's jerseys, stole the whole orange and blue color wave. I'm totally against them, rooting for Penn State.
Oh, come on.
That's a very strong opinion from you, Tyler. And for everyone at home that's a big fan of sports betting, our very own Jordan Leonard joins us to break down the do's and don'ts to win big this weekend.
Thanks, Chloe. First, we start in Happy Valley. Number 19 Illinois travels into State College to take on number 9 Penn State. And yes, this is the perfect game to pick Illinois plus 17.5. The Illini are 3-0-1 against the spread this season. And if you go back to previous matchups with Penn State, Illinois has covered 17.5 in each of the last 2 games. Also, so far this season, the Illini are 4-0 for the first time since 2012 and are 2-0 against AP Top 25 teams. On the other hand, Penn State hasn't played anyone. West Virginia, Bowling Green, and Kent State? What kind of non-conference schedule is that? Because of those cupcakes, the Nittany Lions will start slow. I'm tempted to take Illinois money line, but it's just too easy. 17.5 point spread for Illinois. Moving out west to one of the best stories in college football so far this year, BYU. They're 4-0, just cracked the rankings at number 22 after demolishing Kansas State 38-9 last week. And I haven't even gotten to the best part. Their QB, Jake Retzlaff, is the Jewish king of college football. Just to clarify, I am Jewish as well. Either way, though, Retzlaff has guided the Cougars' offense to a scorching start, where they have averaged 32 points per game. BYU is 3.5-point dogs in this game, but I'm not picking the spread. I'm riding BYU moneyline at plus 130 to take down Baylor on the road. The only Jewish faith quarterback in the country, it's money. BYU believe it. Hashtag Andrew Catalan. The Cougars' undefeated start will continue this weekend in Waco. Now on to the biggest game of the week, number 2 Georgia versus number 4 Alabama. It's not often we get to see this big of a conference game in the month of September, but this matchup could be the best of the season. There's not much I can predict in this game other than the over of 48.5. 11 of the last 12 games since 1995 have hit the over, plus Bama's offense is just unstoppable. The Tide have scored 42 points or more in each of the first 3. There may be some concern for Georgia's offense after only 13 points against Kentucky, but I don't care. Give me the over of 48.5 in Bama v. Georgia. Those are the national games, but now we got Syracuse and Holy Cross to get to. In one of these kind of matchups, you have to throw money line out of the equation. Who's going to win? And the odds are going to be terrible. The line, though, 28.5. I'm kind of baffled by this. Does Vegas really think SU is only 28 points better than Holy Cross at home? I mean, come on, man. In each of the last 4 games against FCS teams, SU's beat Colgate 65-0, Wagner 59-0, U-Albany 62-24, and Holy Cross 41-3 in 2019. Those games haven't been remotely close, and I don't expect this one to be. Fran Brown and Kyle McCord are going to be determined after the first loss of the season, and it won't be close. Syracuse easily covers 28.5, probably wins by upwards of 40. Book it. Another solid bet for this game is the over-under. The total points right now is 57.5. And as I mentioned before with the scores from the last 4 matchups between SU and an FCS school, the Orange dominate and score a ton of points. This game is no different. SU has something to prove on offense after a poor showing against Stanford. Give me the over 57.5 later today in the Dome. That's all I got in terms of bets for today's action. I'm guaranteed to do better than Tyler Aitken last week on Beat the Bookie, though. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Jordan. I'm not a big sports bettor, nor do I really understand it. You're not legal enough to bet, so we're not going to even get into that conversation. Tyler, what's in sports betting?
I told you he was going to bring Illinois Penn State, though.
You are correct that
I know you also have some beef with Jordan Leonard right now.
I will say, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. He's taking pot shot after pot shot at me. He puts absolutely no thought into his sports bets. He was talking about Penn State, Illinois, and was like, oh, there's this huge trend. Each of the last 2 times they've played, this has happened. What are you talking about, Jordan? What are you talking about? You bet with your heart like you did.
We don't want beef in CitrusTV.
With the Rutgers.
We need to resolve this beef after the show.
I have to have a fight on the camera. I would totally do that.
No violence.
None of that.
So, yeah.
But it's picking up here on the campus. So many fans rolling in. And when we come back here on Cuse Countdown, we'll give you your final picks and who we think is going to win. And we'll also check in with Srikar Rajendran inside the Dome. Stay with us.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. It's picking up here. We're about 30 minutes out from kickoff between Syracuse and Holy Cross, and we're joined by very own Srikar Rajendran for the last time before this game kicks off. Srikar, so great to have you back. There was a fan that just walked past here that was from Switzerland. I want to add that to see Syracuse and Holy Cross. What is the vibe like inside the Dome 30 minutes left to kick off?
Yeah, fans are still starting to trickle into their seats here as we get closer and closer to kickoff. But one thing I've been noticing, obviously it's Parents Weekend, but seeing all these families in the upper sections and the lower bowl, it almost gives off a strong sense of community. Even though it's an FCS opponent in Holy Cross, it still calls for a great atmosphere, and Syracuse fans are turning out in droves. I think it's really cool to see, and it should be a good atmosphere for this one. We're inching closer and closer to kickoff, and I'm expecting this place to turn up.
Thank you so much, Srikar. And we're joined by our very own Hudson Ridley. Hudson, what a day you've been having. Who have you been talking to?
I've talked to basically everybody. I've talked to Holy Cross fans. We somehow found that. Some Syracuse fans. But I also talked to Otto today. And
What did Otto say?
Otto had some pretty interesting notes about how to fix the offense, which we'll get to a little bit later. But Otto did tell me his favorite move, putting the arms in.
Oh, the spin around.
Yeah. It was great to see that.
Nice.
That's great. Have you seen a lot of Holy Cross? What's the ratio like? I'm guessing obviously a lot of Syracuse fans here. But
It's about 99-1, but that 1% is strong. They are loud. You heard from Dana earlier, a Holy Cross fan, who said, if it's a 48-13 game, that's a win for Holy Cross at this point. So they haven't won since 1959. They don't expect much, but they are out here.
What do you think Syracuse needs to do today to have this game be successful and also walk away with a win?
I think they just have to go back to what they did in the first couple of weeks on offense, especially running the rock with LaQuint Allen. I mean, we have not seen them really use LaQuint Allen in the right way, especially last week. This is not a good interior defensive line of Holy Cross. Run it up to gut, run physical, wear that team down, so then you can pull your starters out early.
Well, I don't know if LaQuint Allen or anyone on Syracuse has the athletic ability as you do.
Well, hey, I doubt it too.
Adam, I'm going to go to you. What's your key to the game? What does Syracuse need to be successful?
Well, I think even if Kyle McCord plays a little bit in this game, you want to see the passing game continue to work. Those 2 interceptions were costly last game, and even though he led a great final drive, Syracuse wasn't able to get the win, and that's what stings with him the most. So I think right now, go out in the first quarter, if that's all that he plays, throw for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is going to be a real positive for him and give him some more motivation going forward.
Tyler, what do you think?
I mean, you know what I think. RTDB, I'll say the clean version, run the dang ball. LaQuint Allen should run it 20 times. Yasin Willis should run it at least 15 times. I want everybody running. Let's see Little League Kyle out there. He's running. Let's see another running touchdown for him this week.
Well, let's talk predictions. I'm guessing you've talked Syracuse a lot.
I've been talking Syracuse a lot. I've been talking a little negative. I've talked negative about Fran Brown, the running game, penalties, the offensive line. But at the end of the day, I was born and raised in Syracuse.
Local products we got
to nothing. I'm going 59-0. Syracuse is going to control the pace from the start.
The fans are
cheers. I know it was ugly last week, but Fran Brown is going to come out with a vengeance and want a big win today.
Look, I'm not from Syracuse. I wish I could be as confident as my guy Tyler over here. But I still think we've seen Syracuse start off slow this season. I'm losing the voice. We've been talking a lot. I'm talking over the drums and things here. But I think Syracuse does ultimately get the wins. Holy Cross will get a few points on the board. It's going to be 49-10. Like I said, the passing game's going to work. Hopefully the run game gets going too. 49-10 Syracuse.
I'm not as optimistic as you guys because the last time that I bet Syracuse to win by 50 on Cuse Countdown, I was so beyond wrong. I can't even remember the exact game, but I remember looking at the stats.
That's why I went 49. That's why
I looked at the stats after in our Cuse Countdown group chat, and I was like, I'm never doing this again, which is why my prediction is 38-7. I think Holy Cross, at some point, Syracuse is going to put in their second team. Holy Cross should at least be able to score a touchdown, Tyler.
Maybe.
You don't think?
Yeah. You got a prediction?
I'm actually a little bit more negative than you, Adam. I have 48-10.
Okay, all right.
You have a little more points than me.
Great minds think alike.
Exactly. Those second stringers are going to come in. Holy Cross is actually a football team of competent players. They do play Division I. I guess they can
lose to FCS teams. No, that's fine.
Well, they do lose to FCS teams, but that's expected. 10 points on the board.
You're starting beef with Jordan Leonard. You're starting beef with Hudson. What's going on?
With everybody.
I've only been on the show 2 minutes, and you already dislike me here, huh?
Can we start beef with the people who set the spread at 29.5 points?
We're still doing
You're not confident in this team, and even you have Syracuse beating them by more than 30 points. I mean, I don't know.
Well, if I could bet, which I can't bet, but if I could bet, that
could.
spread
For legal reasons.
You are right.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say how great it was to do the show today. All the fans around everywhere has been absolutely amazing. I know it's Parents Weekend. Are your parents here? Are you guys going to the game, first off? Are your parents here?
My parents live on the other side of the country. They haven't been here since I moved in freshman year.
That's great.
We will be watching and hoping that Syracuse plays great tonight.
That's all the time we have for Cuse Countdown for the three of us saying so long and have a great game, Syracuse.